Voting rights activist Annie Lee Cooper was born on June 2, 1910, in Selma, Alabama. She was born to a family of 10 siblings, and her parents worked very hard to support her and her family, which sparked her values of grit, self-reliance, and justice. When Annie Lee Cooper was born, Selma was all about the cotton industry. Black people were working on plantations in conditions that were hardly better than slavery, and Alabama's laws locked black people out of the polls. Because of the very strict and unjust voting laws in Alabama, Annie Lee Cooper grew up never giving a thought to the idea that black people could ever vote. It was only when she moved to Kentucky as a 14-year-old to live with her sick sister that she saw black people going to the polls. She herself wanted to vote, but she was too young to do so. In 1962, Cooper moved back to Alabama to take care of her sick mother. She was already registered to vote in Kentucky and Ohio and was determined to become registered in Alabama. However, when she attempted to register, not only did they make her stand in line from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., but made her take a ridiculous voting test and told her that she had failed it and to not try again. Cooper was inspired by the work of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the SNCC. And when they collaborated with the Dallas County Voters League to help black people gain suffrage in Alabama on October 7, 1963, also known as Freedom Day, she was one of 400 people who showed up to the polls to register, standing in line for hours in scorching heat. When her boss, Mr. Dunn, discovered that both she and another employee were in attendance, they were fired from their jobs. In 1965, Martin Luther King and the SCLC came to Selma for a voting rights campaign, and Annie Lee Cooper was at the front lines of the march. In this scene in the Selma movie, Cooper is portrayed by Oprah resisting violence from a police officer at the march. Later in 1965, she stood in line at the courthouse to try to register to vote once again. As she stood waiting, Cooper uttered, "Nobody's afraid of them." Sheriff Jim Clark poked Cooper in the neck with his billy club, and she spun around, giving him a hard right hook, knocking him to the ground. The sheriff's deputies attacked her, arrested her, and charged her with criminal provocation. When asked about the event right after, she said, "I'll try to be nonviolent, but if they treat me brutish like they did this time, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing again." Annie Lee Cooper was the biggest advocate for the fight that everyone deserved their right to vote. She exemplified that change doesn't come easy, but it is worth fighting for. She lived to be 100 years old and is renowned as one of the most important female figures in suffrage history.